It's time for today's episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast, recorded in front of a slightly tipsy studio audience at world-famous Champy's Fried Chicken. We will have the latest on Georgia Bulldogs football, basketball, and recruiting. Watch live and send us your questions on the 11 Alive Sports page on Facebook. Be advised this podcast is off the record and not safe for work. Also, be sure to subscribe to the UGA Sports Live Podcast on iTunes and Google Play.
Hey everybody, welcome to UGA Sports Live Podcast here at Champy's on Baxter Street. My name is Rodney DeBolsi. I'm joined by recruiting prediction maker Jake Roos. He'll have his predictions later on this evening, so you'll know how Georgia's going to fare tomorrow on, we'll call it original signing day. I don't like the idea of late signing day.
Yeah,
I like original signing day.
And it's not fair to call it National Signing Day anymore. It's totally been overtaken by
the day after Thanksgiving.
Original Signing Day.
Original signing day.
I like that.
And, of course, we have Coach Jim Donnan here, Hall of Fame coach, former head coach at the University of Georgia. The reason everyone's tuned in, we have a great crowd here today. A lot of folks tuned in. We even got Dan to come out to watch the show, and you know that means a lot if we can get Dan out of his office.
Take some pictures.
And, of course, we got the guys from the Dog Vent over there, too, and some guys from Rockdale County here, which, greatest county in America.
Did they ever see you play live?
No. They were ahead of me. Nat and those guys, they actually played my older brother. So,
okay.
They got to play with
cool.
Nimmer, an actual athlete instead of me, his younger brother, who was more the academic.
Yeah.
I saw a picture of you on the track team. Boy, you were cut.
I do, yeah. I had the guns. Me and Jeff Collins, the Georgia Tech head coach. I know this is a family show. I can't give those stories out. Maybe one day we'll have a Jeff Collins remembrance show. Anyway, big shout out to Champy's. We're here live. They're letting us come to their restaurant. Great place to go today. Great weather. You can eat out on the deck. It'd be fabulous. Right now we have the chicken finger basket.
Little Champy sauce, homemade in-house, and the fries are a little extra crispy today.
Yeah, we can hear it every time you eat it. Right in my headphones. So get a chance, come out. And again, last week I had that Philly chicken.
Yeah, that's
sandwich.
excellent.
It's new to the menu. You got to try that when you come out here. Of course, we also want to give a shout out to Athens Ford, big sponsor of our show. Aaron Overhead Doors, another huge sponsor of our show and our website. Your Pie, get ready. March 14th, Your Pie Day is coming up. Of course, Academia Brewing Company. We both have the
Skull.
The Skull,
the farmhouse ale today.
Because they've been selling through so much of their other beer. The Skull's the only one they got on tap right now, which is fine by me because this stuff's great. And then, of course, Cable East. Thanks, Robert Ball, for sponsoring the show. And we're on the 11 Alive Facebook page. Go ahead and share this if you would. They're not asking for much, but if you'd share it, then more people see it. And 11 Alive figures maybe it's worth having us come around each week. It doesn't mean a whole lot. Anyway, like you said, today is the day before the original signing day. And I know a lot of people are, Jake, the questions are going to come in. If you have your questions, go ahead and send them in. A lot of people are going to question Jake. Well, who are we getting tomorrow? What's coming tomorrow? Give us your predictions. I want to hold off on that.
Sure.
We got an hour to talk about it, but I thought your column yesterday was fantastic. 3 observations about the signing day, about the state of the class. It's number 3 that I really appreciated the most because it was no matter what happens tomorrow, look at who you got.
Keep perspective.
I mean, keep perspective. There are guys in this class that, even if you don't get anybody tomorrow, let's say Georgia went over, Coach, you got nobody tomorrow, you would still have the number 2 recruiting class in the nation and probably the best recruiting class you've had at the University of Georgia.
Other than last year.
Yeah, so, you're neck and neck with the University of Alabama. You're right. Again, if you got nobody, this class has already signed your second best class in God knows how long. So I want to.
And in the history of recruiting, since they've been keeping these numbers, only 8 other teams have gotten as high as we've got all time.
See, there you
There you go.
So, again, if you get no one tomorrow, don't sweat it because you've kicked its butt already. What Kirby Smart and those guys did back in December was lights out. Now, the fact that – and remember – They've already made inroads in 2020 and 2021. So, again, recruiting is going fantastic. We will talk about some of the remaining targets out there, the icing on the cake, if you will. But I want to talk about some of the guys that Georgia already has. When we did our last recruiting show on that on the early signing day, you were on the road.
I was, yes.
That's his job. He covers recruiting. So we didn't have him here. So I want to get some of your thoughts about the guys that are in the class already And there's a ton of them that are already on, not in the class, they're on the team. They are practicing right now. We saw guys in these little videos that the University of Georgia puts out. You know, you look and you see Clay Webb pushing a sled. You see, other guys, running around, Tariq Stevenson, guys like that are already here. So, Coach, I know you occasionally you get to see some of these guys when you're over there getting your treatments and stuff. You were close to the program. You've heard the scuttlebutt. I want your take on some of these guys, some of the guys that are here at Georgia on the team practicing with the Bulldogs.
I want to bust out of the gate right off the start with the 5-star, the gem of the class, by recruiting rankings, Nolan Smith.
Well, Nolan Smith, I mean, what can you say about him? You watched him practice down there. You saw him at the deal. But any way you look at it, just a very physical guy. He's got great leadership skills, too. He's kind of a Pied Piper guy everybody likes. We won't go into a lot about each guy, but, among the top players in the country, if not the top-rated player, can come in here and play in a lot of different areas, can play – rush the passer, play the pass, but he's going to be outstanding.
When you talk about a kid like that, Coach, how important is it to have that kind of versatility from a young man like
and
that?
with our scheme where we sub so much, if you can play various deals like Lorenzo Carter could do, he could play in the regular package, but he could also play nickel, go out and play star. It's this kind of guy that can play varying positions without having to go take him off the field, and certainly he'll learn from everything. And I think last year was very good from the standpoint you got a guy like compare Salyer and Hill, both very highly recruited, but Hill got the benefit of spring practice, so he got off to a little better jump start on him, and he's going to be an outstanding player, and so is Salyer. But the thing that I think that I can add maybe about these guys, the 4 that were here before the fall, at the end of the fall break, and got to come in and practice a little while. I got to see those guys. Clay Webb, he's just you've said you can't say enough about the kind of attitude he had. He's a throwback to the old school offensive lineman. If you ask him to do anything, he's going to do it. He played on the scout team against our defense, getting ready for Texas. But he's a physical guy. He's very smart, very cerebral, and is mature beyond his days. Jermaine Johnson, grown man. He scares me to look at the guy, at what he potential is, certainly, but if he walked out the door and walked into any place, you'd say he's a football player. Just an outstanding looking guy. We didn't get to see him work out quite as much then because he had a hurt ankle, but the number 1 JUCO guy in the country, I think he's going to really help us from a player perspective, and as a guy that's got a little experience at another place coming in here. DJ Daniel, you covered his recruiting deal. Everybody talked about him going someplace, and then he ended up South Carolina and then came here. With us losing Baker, I watched him work some in the bowl preparation. He's got good feet, good size, and he really didn't know the defense that much, but they really got some good teaching in with him prior to spring practice. I think he'll definitely be a guy we'll look at, but, having Wilson come along and Baker, somebody's got to replace Baker, Wilson or this guy, or we'll see what happens. And then the other guy is Walthour. Pronounce his name. Is that how you pronounce it?
I think it's Walthour.
Walthour. That's good. That's why you're
like
helping
Walthourville.
Me. But the only guy in America that knew that we were going to bring him in was our own Jake Bruce and count him on this year's list. And they brought him in. He's not quite as big as he's going to be, but he's a hard worker. I like his style. I like the way he's as an old coach, I like to see a guy go out there and get in the fray. I think he'll be a helper down the line. Maybe not right away, but he's going to give us a body inside. So those are 4 guys that I got to see in person, plus Smith. Now let's go down to others rapid fire so we won't take him. Let's go first with Lewis Sign. I guarantee his length makes my mouth water. He's got good length, and he can come off and make tackles in space, something that hurt us last year. Against LSU, other teams, we didn't tackle Texas well in space. I think he can do that, whether he'll supplant the other guy. An immediate impact as a special teams player. All right, who we got?
Ryan Trouble Davis.
Well, I tell you, Ryan had the tough luck of getting his knee hurt, but he was able to have surgery down there in Florida. He's come up here, and he's got a really good attitude. Obviously, he'll go to all the meetings and everything, but down the road, he's going to be a presence as an inside backer, and that goes straight to Jacoby Dean, one of the most highly recruited guys in America. an inside presence that'll really help us. The coaches like his attitude. And the other thing they like about him is, from what I've talked to, I got a little inside scoop, but this guy's really academically driven, too.
Yes.
I like to hear about guys that, talk about academics and make it happen. So he's going to be a good student-athlete for us.
4.2 GPA in high school. Unbelievable. Rylan Godey, another guy who faced some injury problems.
Yeah, Rylan has another case of a knee injury his senior year. But with our situation at tight end, this guy's got a physical presence to him. He can catch the ball. He can move in space. And I think it's a great addition to us and somebody we really need even more now with losing the 2 tight ends in Nauta and Ford. Okay,
I think he fits the offense perfectly. He's going to be a great blocker down the line, was in high school. Tresman Marshall out of Clinch County.
Well, I tell you, this guy is a physical-looking guy. He came up here the last day of practice, and he had to have a little bit of a shoulder repair, and he did it up here at UGA, which I think is good because he can get his rehab up here. But I didn't know who he was, and I saw him out there, and I asked one of the guys, "Who is that guy right there?" I mean, when I see a guy, and I got to ask about it, and they said it was him. I said, "I guarantee you, he passes the eyeball test."
Yes, he does.
Stout, good-looking kid, very, very into it. Even though he just had his jersey on, he was out there. He was listening. He was perceptive, and he shows to me a guy that understands what he's got to do to make it here. He probably won't do anything much in the spring, but down the road he's going to be a player. You put him and Dean in with Tyndall and Quay Walker and the kid from Alabama got hurt last year. I can't remember. I'm going down the notes, man. Monty Rice. All right, let's go next.
All right, the big surprise of the class, Dwan Mathis.
I tell you, Dwan Mathis is a guy that's pennies from heaven. Every time it rains, it rains. But this guy was a definite plus for us because what we lost in Fields and the fact that things were up in the air with Plumlee, and now Plumlee's going to Ole Miss, which you can't blame the guy.
No, not at all.
But we needed a guy in the room, and we needed a future player. And we were able to do that. From what I understand, he's lengthy, and I've watched tape on him. I haven't seen him throw live, but a couple of guys that have left here to other jobs have told me they watched him throw, and they really liked the kid. So we wouldn't have taken him if he wasn't a real big-time player. And you got to figure he's going to Ohio State. He had to have a good arm, too.
Yeah, no question.
That's and that just goes right into Stetson Bennett. And we always talk about Stetson, but here's a guy that can run our offense. Is going to give you a good backup, give you a chance to let Dwan come along, and I'm sure Jake will help him in a lot of different ways. But that was a big hit by us, and a smart move by Kirby and Coley, bringing in a guy with experience to supplement Jake.
Coach, I think this next guy is underrated. I think people are forgetting about him too much, and that's Warren McClendon out of Brunswick.
Holy smoke. I mean, the dancing bear. This guy here has got a lot going for him now. And one of my players that played for me, Jason Wellman at Marshall, his son goes to school down there. And he told me about McClendon when he was in the 10th grade. He said, "Hey, is Georgia on him?" And I asked Coach Pittman. He said, "Yeah." He said, the kid's young. He's going to mature. And Pittman's high on him. He's come in here. He's a bigger guy. He hadn't been used to working like he has to in the all-season program. I mean, it's a big jump, So he's having to, manufacture. He's always been the biggest guy in the room, and he's having to learn how to use his body a lot like Wilson did coming in. So I think McClendon is a definite plus, and we'll talk about Troop in a minute, who you saw out there. We're going to go to you. You're going to take over the show.
Yeah,
I'm running out of stuff to talk about.
I think McClendon is a five position player. He could do anything on the offensive line. You can't get enough guys like that.
Good kid, too.
Last guy of the early enrollees, Tyreek Stevenson.
Well, there's a guy that you saw play, but just got the length, size, wants to play for Georgia, good friends with Campbell and Devod Wilson. I mean, you got 3 guys that grew up together, that know each other, have been together all their lives, a lot like a lot of these Georgia guys here that, play with each other in Little League and all that. So I think that bond's going to help those guys because they know each other's got their backs and stuff like that, and it'll help Stevenson getting in here early, whereas Campbell didn't get to do that last year. He came in later, but he really made a significant improvement in 2 days and ended up starting. So just a great get for us getting Stevenson, and I'm just about running out of gas, so I think you got to take it over from here.
All
but
right,
I hope
that's 14 players that are here on campus.
Yeah, I hope the
practice.
fans understand when we're talking about this, it's not that we know everything. Just trying to give you a little bit of insight without giving away stuff, because I don't really know much more, but I did get to see those 4, and I've did a little research talking to some people that had left here, because the guys that are here – they're not going to tell you. Well, that's just the way it is. But
they don't tell you anything.
I talked to Mel. I talked to Jay Johnson. I talked to Tyson Summers. These guys have a good feel for these guys, and they gave me a good readout on it. So Kirby probably call them up and raise hell with them.
that's what we call an exit interview. Hey,
there you go.
Who we got? So that's straight from that's information from the coaches who are on their way out. And they're going to be honest with you, coach. Now, if I talk to them, they'll be like, he's good, and then we get nothing else. But great stuff on the 14 early enrollees. And again, that's a team and a half. Already,
and they're already here to practice.
That's what I'm saying.
3 of them are going to miss practice because of injuries. Godey and. Marshall and Davis. But, they're here and they're doing rehab under the best trainer in America, and Ron Corson and his staff. And I just want to have one little shout out to Ron Corson here, because things like this don't come up very often. But, when a guy gets injured and it's a life-changing deal, like what happened to Gurley, what happened to White, what happens to a lot of these guys, Gurley knows what all Ron went through to get him ready and all that. And he called up Ron and got him invited him to the Super Bowl as his guest. I think that's so good. I mean,
that's awesome.
I just think that's what it should be, But at the same time, this goes to show you. And a couple other things before I forget it, that you can't beat. For Todd Gurley say, the best decision I ever made was going to UGA. And for Bill Belichick to say, hey, when they go practice with Georgia, they're ready for the NFL under Kirby Smart. Hey, so that's it for me today. I'll see you guys later.
No, I get to your point. I thought that the Super Bowl was a fantastic showcase for the University of Georgia. When you have Bill Belichick, the greatest who's ever done it, to come out and say that, kids that go to UGA are ready for the NFL.
There's no higher compliment.
Well, yeah, if I am my degree is actually in advertising. I went through the journalism school with a concentration in advertising. If I had to write an ad for Kirby Smart to use in recruiting, it would be, even if I came up with that, which I know I wouldn't because I wasn't very successful at it, but if I had to come up with my best idea, it would be like, if you could get a celebrity endorsement, who would you want? Well, maybe Herschel Walker. Well, again, and then Herschel is great, but he's not as relevant as Bill Belichick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe the guy's going to the Hall of Fame. Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah.
Your boy.
Really happy for Champ. Had a couple texts with him and his mother last week. It was awesome. But
first ballot Hall of Famer.
We got these other guys.
No, I'm just saying the fact that they come out with Bill Belichick with that endorsement, you couldn't write that any better than what he did for Georgia.
Well, and then to see Sony Michel punch it in 94 yards in the game behind David Andrews.
And the two guys, Isaiah Wilson over there, and then you got Richard Seymour, who he said was he was one of the top 2 linemen he ever coached.
Yeah, and then you got got Gurley there, and of course all the attention's on Gurley, and everyone's watching him. So in other words, it wasn't just one-sided. You weren't just pulling for one side or the other. You had all those guys from the University of Georgia. Rameek Wilson, Isaiah Wynn, guys you didn't see a whole lot, but they're there. I thought it was just a fantastic. The game was garbage, but I think from a Georgia standpoint, you couldn't ask for anything better.
It's a good defensive game, man. There's a lot of coaching in there.
Yeah, there was.
Hey, we got to get these names in there.
Right.
I'm going to ask you about these guys, and I want you to hit them.
So this is the rest of the signing class. The guys that are already inked, they're coming, they're in.
Well, these guys here, what we've already talked. All right, tell us about Kenny McIntosh.
So Kenny McIntosh, four-star running back out of Fort Lauderdale. Bit of a surprise, I think, for a lot of people. Not that he wasn't heavily recruited by Georgia, but just pulling a back out of that part of the country, just tough to do. I mean, it's difficult. McIntosh played in the highest level of Florida's high school football, racked up yards after yards. A powerful guy. I think he's going to be a very nice.
Good short yards.
I think he's going to be a very nice replacement for a guy like Elijah Holyfield. I think.
You know what I like about him too? He knows what we got here. He knows it's running back you, and he still came here. So he knows how to meet a challenge.
But
question.
Also, and again, I don't want to come across as the rah-rah Georgia guy, but if I am a running back and I know that backfield, I mean, that running back room is loaded. All I got to do is look at who Sam Pittman's bringing in the offensive line. I'm like, yeah, I'm going there.
Yeah, life's going to be a lot easier.
I'm going there. I'm not going to Florida State.
Yeah.
You know?
Who else isn't going there?
I'm just saying. And it's not. And Florida State in the past has had great offensive linemen, and they've had guys go to the league. But if you're looking at it right now, you're thinking Georgia. Well, and we'll hit some of these other guys in that recruiting class. You're like, man, I'm gonna go run behind those monsters.
Dude, Florida's taking advantage of Miami and Florida State being down. I mean, Florida's recruiting hadn't been that great the last few years, but they're coming up. But how about those 3 guys from Tennessee hit them for us? For us to get 3 of the top 10 players in Tennessee, and I didn't realize that Tennessee was that much of a hotbed for players, but I saw a ranking that said Tennessee's one of the top 8 or 9 states in the country for producing players.
Yeah, and they're climbing every year. You know, the Memphis area, the Nashville area, and then around Knoxville, we're seeing a lot of players come out of those areas. Obviously, Cade Mays did last year, but Tymon Mitchell out of Nashville, Tennessee, a kid that I've had a chance to see in person, saw him up at Rivals Camp in Nashville last year. Big-bodied guy, moves really well for it. He's got a little bit of bad weight right now, but that's to be expected. A little baby fat on him.
Don't hold that against me.
He'll get.
You know, when you got a bad boiler, it's one thing, but if you got a good boiler,
that's right.
Okay.
No, he's going to be fine.
I can tell you about that.
I think Tymon's going to be absolutely fine when it comes to getting here. I'll tell you this: Zion Logue, the other guy at Lebanon, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville as well.
How about his arms?
Lebanese.
Listen, yeah. This kid's 6'6", 280 is what we got him listed as. He looks every single bit of it. He was a kid that I saw at that same camp, that Rivals Nashville camp. This kid was somebody who, when he walked in, I started scrambling on my sheet. Who is this guy? What number is this? Zion Logue, massive, massive kid. And I think raw. I think very, very raw. I think a guy with a lot of potential to grow into his body, to grow into his game. I think that he's got a great future ahead of him. And then you got Will Norton out of Memphis, and a guy who 6'6", 265, a big, long guy, a guy that they recruited early on and stayed on throughout the
could be
process.
O-lineman. He could be O-lineman. But, you go back to one thing, and I'll just hit you that you said, how about Davis last year? Everybody said, well, how high recruited guy he is. Listen, this guy knows what he's doing, getting players. They can't all just walk out on the field and play the first day, but look what he did. Look how much it hurt us not having him. But this report today that we're given is not the half-empty cup. This is the half-full cup, which we're preluding till the end of the show, which might be half-empty. But so what? Let's keep going here.
All right, so then you got Micaiah Tongue out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Great pull, I think. Another guy like Warren McClendon that I think people are overlooking in this class. Physical receiver. A guy who's going to get out there and block for you. A guy who's going to make all the catches for you. Highlight reel catches. You go watch it. Watch it. Guy is going to be a stud.
Be a special teams guy, too.
Probably right out of the gate.
And if you look at what Edelman said, the reason he got in the league was because of special teams.
Yep.
He didn't get in there because he was a receiver. They were looking at him to be a return guy. And I think all athletes should look at that, and it's going to be a selling point for the guys that we're taking that came out early. All 4 of these guys are going to be good on special teams, and the pros is going to help them. Keep going here. You're
Dominic Blaylock, the other wide receiver who's part of this class. Yeah, right. Mr.
How many
Georgia,
touchdown
as I
passes
called
did he
him.
catch in that game?
He caught. I think he scored 3
and threw one.
And threw one. Yeah. So he had 3 touchdowns in the game. Listen, a guy who. Fan favorite, day one. I think everybody already loves the kid. A smooth athlete, a guy who's going to get in that slot. I think he's going to end up playing very similarly to like what we saw out of Terry Godwin over the course of his career, and maybe even a little bit ahead of Terry.
He's Terrence Edwards. I'm calling my shot now.
All right.
He's Terrence Edwards.
Think he's fast as Terrence?
No, Terrence could fly. And that's not a shot against Dom, but I guarantee you he's up there. If Georgia remember, Terry's got a lot of passes going his way. Georgia tends to spread the ball out a little bit more, but that is a guy who could have that same production. If you want to go to him, like in the Super Bowl, they kept throwing Edelman. Edelman was open. I guarantee you Dominic Sanders is going to be the same way.
I hope so.
Guarantee.
But, you talk about where are they now and things like that. That's why we have this show. And people end up being places. I mean, like Zach Taylor now just got the Cincinnati job. He's 35 years old. My daughter used to babysit him in Oklahoma. When we recruited Terrence Edwards, you know who the 2 lead dogs were for Auburn and Alabama going against me? Dabo Swinney and Jimbo Fisher.
Wow.
Really?
I told those guys, you ain't got a chance of being coached into it. You can't do anything. Look at me now. Look at them. But we got Terrence.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you this. My favorite thing about Dominic, one last note on him, this is a guy who, when the lights come on, he comes on. You talked about, you spot some of these guys and you know, hey, that's a football player.
He's a player.
You wouldn't necessarily see that out of Dominic if you passed him on the street, but, man, when the lights come on and he's on the field, it's all over. And
I talked to Jim Chaney a little bit about him, too, and Chaney has left here, but he can say enough good things about the fact how the guy just hung through everything. He never even worried about going anywhere but Georgia. And, that means a lot to me when a guy's going to be with us from day one. So who we got next?
Last guy in the signing class is Xavier Truss, and talk about a mountain of a man. I admit he's the guy I probably still have the biggest question mark about, just because I haven't gotten to see him really go live. He was at the Army game. He twisted up an ankle, and you wonder about how you transition from Rhode Island high school football to the SEC. But there's no doubt the guy has the size. Maybe a little bit of a project out of the gate, but we'll see. He may be.
But
he's
got good feet.
Yeah, he did.
I'm just saying,
good feet.
If you can see what Sam Pittman did with Dan Skipper at Arkansas, if he could take that kid and make him into the NFL player that he did, because the first time I saw Skipper, he was terrible. He was terrible. Then under Sam Pittman, he turned out to be a hell of an athlete. A hell of a lineman. And to me, if you can give Sam Pittman that raw,
we're not going to take. We're not going to take guys' projects. This guy's got the feet. I was told that he had the kind of feet that you want to have, maybe a little better feet than Wilson, but not quite as strong. But you forgot to talk about that great basketball player we signed.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. You are
slacker.
I actually
He's
wrote,
fired, folks.
I actually wrote yesterday in the 3 observations ahead of signing day piece that I think Georgia has an absolute. I will be surprised if Trayvon Walker is not a star. I think that kid has all the makings. His game is right there. Physically, he's perfectly built for it. His basketball skills are going to translate beautifully onto the field. I think that he is a guy who is the total package, will be a star in Athens. Mark it down.
I'm going to tell you, when you watch him in the shot put circle and he fires out of there and wins the shot put, if he gets underneath your pads as an offensive lineman, that tackle does a little kick step, and he gets underneath you, he's going to lift you up and push you back into your quarterback. And you are going to sack, if you're an offensive lineman, you're going to sack your quarterback with your back when you land on top of him, because that kid is going to drive you through him.
Let's just play Wheel of Fortune with this guy. Okay, give me an S.
S.
No, I'm just – can I buy a vowel A? Can I buy a vowel I? Give me a T. Stallion.
Ding, ding, ding. Yes,
he is. And that was what you said is so true. Watching him out at the All-American game this year, there wasn't a guy that he couldn't walk back. When he starts plodding, you're just holding on for dear life.
That lower base of his, when he gets underneath you, and again, he gets down, he's got good bend, he gets low, he comes out of that stance. If he gets underneath you, if you're high and you go against him, you've lost.
Yeah,
and of course now he also has a great rip. Mm-hmm. I've seen him club and swim. He's got the moves, but I'm just saying, if you go man to man against him,
listen to this guy giving his terminology.
And I'll tell you this, and the other big thing about him that I really love, and I bet coaches do too. Daddy was a former Marine.
Oh yeah,
they ain't no playing at Trayvon Walker's house. All right.
Hey, and I tell you the other thing, from day one, he's another guy that hung with the dogs.
Absolutely.
But anyhow, this is a UGA show.
I'd have bought him a couple cars.
It's a UGA show, and we're talking about. We had some bad things happen to us at the end of the year, lost 2 games, and everybody's saying, well, hey, I'm overrating our team for next year. Some guys told me that I was out there.
Too optimistic?
And said, what I'm talking about is our potential talent is there. How the other teams react, how they develop has a lot to do with it. But our defensive talent in particular is going to be very much increased as far as the kind of guys we're going to have. And so much for that part. But I think that was good that we went over those guys just to make everybody have some dessert today. Feel good about
Perspective,
it.
like
Hey,
I said,
hey.
keep that perspective. Now, I do want to get into some of these questions. We got a bunch coming in today, and I want to talk about what tomorrow may hold. But, Roddy, I want to hit you first. Let's dive in and
No, I want to mention we saw that Ryan Lucia, who is the owner of Aaron Overhead Doors, is on with us, and he actually says that he had somebody come out, a listener or a subscriber to the podcast, actually called them up and got a quote on a garage door. And I want people to remember that you can get a quote from them for free. They don't charge anything. And if you're like, well, and again, these guys, they actually are going to send someone out to your house who works there. It's not a contractor, not like a certain giant big box manufacturer who came out to my house on Saturday to measure something that was 30 inches. I told them it's 30 inches, but they had to measure it themselves because apparently I can't read a tape measure. But anyway, and again, it's some contractor. I had no idea who the hell he was. It doesn't come out with the shirt, but the people that come from Aaron Overhead Doors are Aaron Overhead Door employees. They will give you a free estimate. And if you're like, I want to do that, but I want to do a little bit more, and you start getting out of your budget, they have financing.
There you go.
I mean, and especially if you're like me, it's post-Christmas, you don't have any money, and you need something done, the financing is a very convenient way to get it done. So, again, Aaron Overhead Doors, they are in North Atlanta, kind of the Swanee area. They go all over the place. Do not worry about location. If you are anywhere, if you can drive a couple hours to Atlanta or drive a couple hours north and hit Tennessee, you're in their service zone. They will come to you. Those guys, they're on the road, and I've seen their Aaron Overhead Door trucks. So give them a call, and thanks to our listener who called them. And it means a lot that you actually take care of the people who take care of us.
Hey, when you do call our sponsors, tell them you listened to the show and you heard about it on there. That's great.
And he did.
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask you one other thing about recruiting, because this is something that I hear people say, hey, these guys, how much they're going to help us, how much they're going to be ready and all that. Just look to last year's recruiting class. If you go back to 2018, February the 5th or 6th, and we went over that class, look how many of those guys came in and helped Georgia win the SEC East. Unreal.
Yeah.
Look at
you redshirt 4 of them?
But still, but they got to play too. But look at all the guys. Look at all the guys that just came in there one after the other, and just made significant. You just go with Cox, Mays. Just keep going down the hill.
Well, just look at your offensive line. You put in Cade Mays to replace
Ben Cleveland.
Then he gets hurt, and you bring in Hill. 2 freshmen back to back. Hill started against Alabama.
Yeah.
Welcome to the league, buddy. We're playing for the SEC title. You get to go up against those
all
monsters
that,
there.
but I'm just making the point that you have a tendency sometimes to overrate your recruits and all that and count too much and not say enough about the guys that are here. But I just feel like that our staff knows who we got and how to project who we need to supplement it. But
I just want to go to the bottom, what people would consider the bottom of last year's recruiting class. Now, granted 8 5-stars, best recruiting class you've ever gotten, and people like to talk about them, myself included. But when you get to the I don't want to call them the dregs, but the guys who are not as highly rated, you look at Azeez Ojulari, injured most of the year. When he got a chance,
what did he do? Came in with an injury.
Yeah, came in with an injury. That's what I'm saying. But when he was finally healed up enough and they put him in a game, he's everywhere. You look at your a guy like Wilson to be able to come back. What he could do in other words, you saw the guys all the way down, up and down the chart when they got a chance to play. These guys are going to be contributors. You saw a couple of them, that are the potential there is through the roof. So to your point, Coach, yes, there's an amazing amount of potential there. Now you got to coach them right, you got to develop them right. But if you have that raw cookie dough to start with, you're gonna have a damn good party. That's all there is to it.
I think that's the last thing I'm gonna say, and then you go to it.
Yep.
I think the only thing that concerns me, and it's just an unknown, is we lost some really good coaching firepower.
Yep.
We lost 2 full-time guys and 2 that were full-time in Johnson and Summers that did a great job for us. But you lose your 2 coordinators, and anytime that happens, everybody's going to have to adjust. I feel like we will, but it's still a little bit of an unknown there. So my enthusiasm is coupled a little bit with the realism of staff harmony, working together, all that. I think the offensive staff is pretty well set because they've been together, except for the one guy, Hartley, coming in. But the defensive staff, is going to have to work hard, but they got the man running it there in Kirby. So it'll be okay, but it's still – I think it'll be great, but I think it's just going to be a little bit of a question mark.
Absolutely. I wanted to mention, not a question mark, February 16th, get out here to Champies, 4-year anniversary. Also Roddy's birthday, if I'm not mistaken.
Is this 4 years?
Year 4, yeah. So they're going to be doing their big Low Country boil to celebrate their anniversary as well as your birthday.
What time's that? My birthday is more important.
What time's that start?
Let's keep that straight.
We'll start plating at lunch.
All right, starts up around lunch. So get out here early on February 16th. Come in. The Low Country Boil, always a hit. You need to get here early if you want a piece of it,
I was
for
about
sure.
to say, you
but
need
there's
to come
going to be
early.
plenty of chicken to go
How
around.
old are you going to be then?
37. Hey, don't laugh so hard. I'm looking for a new recruiting writer. If you send your resumes to Roddy at UGASports.
So you're half as old as me.
Yeah. so get out. Anyway, get out, see Champies for their 4-year anniversary.
Good play there.
I'm about ready to tear into these chicken tenders right now. All right, let's hop into some of these questions first, and then I want to talk about tomorrow. Brent Tucker, who's actually here watching the show, shout out to Brent. He says, we know the defense is stacked. Which offensive 2019 recruit will have the earliest impact? We went through that whole list of guys there, Coach.
I'd say Stetson Bennett, just because of the depth he provides, and he's going to step in right away and be number 2. You can't say that any of these other guys will be number 2 right off the bat. You got to hope that that Don Blaylock will come in and jump in there pretty well, but. We'll just have to see on that, but I would say Bennett.
I'm going to go with Micaiah Tongue, but for one of the reasons you mentioned, special teams. I think that he's an offensive recruit in this class that's going to make his mark on special teams this year, and may even earn him some playing time based on that.
Coach stole my answer.
Great.
We don't have as many offensive players in this class.
That's why it's a good question.
Jeff Purcell says, guys, do we have a shot with Nick Cross? All right, so let's dive into these remaining targets. Let's talk about that because that's what everybody's wanting to know.
Before you do that, I want to have everybody, if you're watching the show, if you're enjoying the show, if you're in the Athens area, you need to swing by Athens Ford. I'm just warning you, if it weren't for Athens Ford, we're probably not doing this show. So if you like what we do, or if you don't like it, it doesn't matter. Go out to Athens Ford. Do this for yourself. Swing out there. Again, this is the home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. You can get it on any new car, any used car up to 80,000 miles. And I'll tell you this, they don't have a lot of cars out there over 80,000 miles.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'm just saying, when I look through their inventory, there weren't a bunch of them out there. So I can't say, definitively that it's on every car on their lot, but it's pretty close because they're not going to have a bunch of lemons or stuff out there. They're pre-owned inventory is phenomenal. Their service department is great, and it's the one place that I've actually had people go out and say, Roddy, that did not feel like I was buying a used car. That did not feel like a sales experience. I didn't feel like I was a mark when I came in the door and all these sharks were circling around like there was blood in the water. I went out there. I made some friends. They let me take a car home. I tried it out, went back and got the other one. Again, these are guys and ladies out there who will work with you. We've done the show out there. I would go out there and just look at some of the cars they have in the collection.
Don't touch, though.
Don't touch them.
They are nice.
But they have some amazing cars out there. There were some collectibles that they snapped up when they became available. So go out there, check out some of the collectible cars that you won't find anywhere else. So anyway, a trip to Athens Ford. When you're on that side of town anyway, it's the west side. If you're over there by Sam's, swing by. If you're there by Austin Furniture, swing by. You're over there by Sonic or whatever.
Yeah,
swing by. Drop in. Just you can walk in, look around, and you're not going to have some sales guy in your pocket, running his hands over. What's your name? They are happy for you to come by.
How's your credit?
Yeah, exactly. Can we get you? They don't freak out. And heck, if you can go by, just get a free Coke.
There you go.
They got a Coke machine over there. So if you're thirsty, swing by, check out the cars, check out the collectibles. They'll be happy to have you. again, it's the friendliest place you can go.
All
This
right.
guy's ready, man.
I'm chomping at the bit, man.
Come on.
All right, so I am going to release the final hot board for UGAsports.com subscribers this afternoon. So Tuesday afternoon. If you're listening to the podcast later, that won't be applicable to you. So it'll be this evening. But the names that we're really monitoring for tomorrow: Nick Cross out of DeMatha in Maryland, 4-star safety, Florida State commit, has been for some time. A lot of questions surrounding him. Look, I will say I think that it was a great sign for Georgia that he made that unofficial visit at the end of last week, took it on his own dime, got down to Athens before taking the weekend up at Penn State. I just don't see him getting away from Florida State at this point. Although I think if he was to, I think it would be Penn State. I think that would be the other compelling factor. Staying close to home would be good for him. But look, this is a kid who's maintained throughout that Florida State is his dream school. He's wanted to play there. They've put the pressure on. Everybody has. Tremendous player. I think that the coaching transition at Georgia cost them enough ground that it's just been
Well, he was
very
tight
tough
with
to make
he
up.
was tight with Coach Tucker,
Yep.
and then Kirby and Lanning. These guys came in and kind of kept treading water with him. Then we hired Warren, so at least we got him down here, to see what was available. So,
But he's also got a much easier path to playing time at Florida State than he does to Georgia.
No question
Now,
about
that's not
it.
to say he can't come in and play right off the bat, but I do want
you never know.
I just do want folks to understand that when these kids are making decisions, you're looking at like you said about McIntosh. You look at that running back room and you're like, I'm going anyway. Not every kid's going to do that.
The thing that Cross brings to the table, though, he's a guy that can play safety and have physical presence, but he can also, with his speed, play man coverage, can play the star position beside the safety and cover people in the slot.
No doubt.
And could play the money position, be the extra dime defensive back. So he kind of hits up on 3 different areas for you.
So maybe he's got an easy path here.
That we're probably stroking him with. But I think it's you hit it pretty hard there. I think it's going to be a situation where, the other thing that I would set you up here on that everybody's got to realize is from what I understand, we got 2 positions and maybe take some graduate transfer and count them forward. But the thing you got to do is you got to keep enough guys hot that you say, look, we can't tell you for sure that we're going to take you, but if we will take you if we get the scholarship.
Yeah.
And so who are the 2 that you'd take no matter what? Who are the 2 that you would take if you don't get somebody else? Who would be the 2 you take if you don't get any of them? So, you got to look at all those projections, and you got to hope that a guy will wait like Plumlee didn't and see what they'll do. So, to me, the 2 guys that you're talking about in the secondary, certainly you take them no matter what, and then maybe receiver, but keep going here.
All right, Kyer Elam, you mentioned the secondary. Look, a guy who's very long, very physical, very fluid athlete, very intelligent kid, too. A guy that I think they'd love to have. Obviously, Charlton Warren, very familiar with him. Listen, I'll tell you, I've heard a number of things on Kyer Elam leading up to this decision. Florida, I know, feels confident in their chances, and they have throughout, so that's not a huge surprise. But I've heard Colorado felt like they've got a chance at this after getting his official visit. That kid loves Mel Tucker. He's a huge, huge Mel Tucker fan. So
why not? Mel puts guys in the NFL.
I think it's going to be between those 3 schools. Probably end up being Florida, Georgia, Colorado consideration. But I'm gonna lean toward him not being done yet. This is one that I think will run right up until the commitment happens tomorrow.
That is a pet peeve of mine when I have folks tell me, "Where's the kid going? Where's he going?" I'm like, "I don't know." They're like, "Well, where do you think he's going?" I'm like, "Didn't you just hear me? I said I don't know because the kid doesn't know."
Right.
Well, it's so
How
much
the hell
up
are we
in
supposed
there,
to make
right.
a prediction on a kid? And people are like, "When are you going to put your predictions out?" How the hell am I supposed to make a prediction if the kid doesn't know? So you're making me guess what he is going to decide. Now, if a kid's had his decision in,
Sure.
then I can make a prediction.
This will be the hardest predictions you've ever had to make because you only predict.
We may not make them.
because you're just predicting for 2 people and you don't know which are the ones that they feel like. So anything that happens, people are going to find something wrong with it at the end because they're saying such and such. But
Well, if Kirby would call me and help me out a little bit, I greatly appreciate it,
But realistically,
706.
though, the problem you got is, like I said, who do you keep warm? Who do you know? And then we hadn't even got Domingo and
absolutely.
Pickens and Cedar. How you been
Real quick, Coach. Say hi to William Turner on the camera.
William, how you doing?
All right. He said just say hi to me, Coach, and I'll be happy. So.
William Turner is a CPF of mine. Close personal friend.
All right. Mark Anthony Richards, another guy that we've had on our hot board for some time, made an official visit to Georgia. I just don't see that one happening. It looks like it's probably going to be Miami, maybe Florida. Auburn is very heavily in this one. Probably Miami or Auburn for
Why would
Richards.
you take him
You'd
when
love
you
to
got
have.
those
You'd love to have
kids?
him. You can't take him. Though.
Exactly. This is more of a It's just he doesn't fit your needs. He doesn't address your needs.
He's a good player, but we can't.
Absolutely.
But here, that gets back to one of the points that I think that every coach needs to have as his repertoire is ability to look into the future. And when we didn't get Sanders, our coaching staff, Kirby, Coach McGee, they said, look, this is it at running back. We're going to go more for next year. And look at those three we had in this last weekend. You're talking about guys that make your mouth water. So
there's six guys you could take today.
There's people be in line to take Richards in the New York Minute. They take Kane.
doubt.
The guy that went to Penn State. But, our guys know who we got, what we're going to do, and so let them make that decision.
And I like to remind people, too, I know I've brought this up a couple of times, especially in the last couple of weeks, but you have to think that those guys you have to trust that they know what they were doing when they let Tennille Carter go and then kept DeAndre Swift and then went heavy James Cook and Zamir White in the next class. I trust Del McGee.
I can't believe all these people second-guessed them when they did that. I don't know who they were.
Yeah, I never will forget.
I have no idea.
This is my
who
last
may have told
recruiting
said the
story
coaches
today.
were wrong.
But when I was a younger coach, I was coaching at Chapel Hill with Coach Dooley, and Coach Smith was the basketball coach. And, of course, he was a legend. He's very nice and always talking to you and everything. But we would eat dinner sometime and have recruits at the same place that he'd have basketball recruits. And I had just gotten through going up to Pennsylvania because we recruited Pennsylvania later in the year after the ACC guys signed. And there was a kid up there in Pennsylvania that everybody's after in basketball. And I went in the coach and talking to this football player, and the coach said, this kid really wants to go to Carolina. Why aren't they recruiting him? I said, I don't know about. So I see Dean down there the next day on Friday. Get back here. I said, Coach, this guy really likes Carolina. Well, he said, he's not good enough to play for us. And I said, okay, Coach, that's good enough for me. But that's the way you're talking about. Sometimes you set the standards high, and you selectively recruit.
Well, we've had this thing for years. People have accused Rivals, 24/7, Scout, ESPN, all these people of ranking a kid that has an offer from Alabama higher.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well.
The gump bump, they call it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, well, A, it's garbage, but B, let me put it to you this way. If Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher, Dabo Swinney,
they're not
Dan
offering
Mullen,
too many 3-stars.
If they're all offering a kid, do you folks understand what the hell that means? So the kid can play, and they're like, well, I think he's a 3-star. Well, here's the thing. You know what a 3-star in our system is? That's a kid that should go in the 4th or 7th round in the NFL.
Sure.
I mean, it's not a bad thing.
It's like 0.2% of all American high school football players.
It is a good point being, there are certain kids, who would love to play at Alabama. They want to play at Georgia. They want to play at FSU. They want to play at Clemson. They are great players. They're 3-star guys. They could play in the NFL. But they're still not going to get an offer from Georgia or from Alabama. You have this great running back. Georgia's not going to take him.
That's where those preferred walk-ons come in. You got to get those guys in.
Shout out to a bunch of the guys that committed to Georgia recently.
We ended up with having some extra recruiting time to bring these guys in and spend some, because every kid, that's his life, and you want to be able to spend some time with him. If you bring a preferred walk-on in when you got 8 or 9 recruits you're trying to get, it's hard to give them the time. But this last couple of weekends, we've only had a couple official visitors, and then we had those preferred walk-on guys in. But I would say this to some of the families out there that have kids that would like to play football and things like that, and then all of a sudden they're not getting recruited. You know what I'm saying? And it's not anything against your son or daughter or whatever sport they're playing, but as many schools that are playing sports and somebody's not recruiting your son or daughter, it's got to be a reason. You've got to look yourself in the mirror and say, look, as much as he tries hard, he does this, hey, that's great, but so do these 5 stars. They try hard. So it's not a slight against the school that they're not offering you. It's just the fact you got to take a reality pill that your kid's not as good as you think he is.
Get your kid in front of them. You know, we have people all the time. How do I get my son recruited? How do I get his name out there?
Don't buy one of those services. I'll tell you that.
Thank you. You shouldn't be spending money on this, but you know, there at each school's website there will be a director of player personnel. Are you following that person? Are you sending them their huddle video? Are you getting in front of them? Are you talking to your coach to get your video in front of them? Are you reaching out to them? Don't wait for them to come to you.
And watch the guys. I always encourage people to look. If it works, go with it. And I say that to say, if you see a kid who's being hotly recruited, who's putting himself out there, it's okay to mimic that stuff. Send out Mike Wright is the guy who comes to mind from Rising Seniors.
Hey, go ahead and
send out the big resume. He's got a big resume he puts together. He sends to everybody. I think it's just fantastic.
And don't blame it on your high school coach because you're not getting recruited.
All right, I want to hop back into this. We talked about Alabama there for a minute. George Pickens, one I know everybody will be watching tomorrow. I'm going to tell you, I do not feel good about George's chances as of today. Now, what can change my opinion on this is if Pickens ends up going beyond tomorrow. And I think that that's a possibility. I'm not saying it's a for sure, but I do think that it's possibly in the cards. He may go ahead and do paperwork or whatever. He's going to make an announcement at his school, he says. But I think if he goes tomorrow, if he signs tomorrow, I think Auburn's probably going to be the landing spot. But if he goes beyond that, watch Georgia and Tennessee very heavily there.
Right, and you got to look at it from his standpoint selfishly. He's probably asking these schools, can I get in? And they're going to tell you, hey, right now you can't, but you know, if you go on and improve, we might. So if you want to wait, we can still take you. So I mean, that's nothing against the kid. I mean, it's pretty obvious. People know that he's had some grade problems earlier, but he's working on it. But I think that's the real issue now. That gets back to the two. Are you going to take a bird in the hand with 2 guys, or wait on the guy that can't get in now, or is on the borderline, right?
Here's a scenario. Georgia manages to get Kyrie Elam. Great. You got another spot available. Seether, the tight end you're about to mention, says he wants to come. George Pickens says he wants to come. And I asked you this last week. Who do you take? Do you take a kid you know you can get in, kid you don't know can get in?
Position of need, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I thought when you mentioned last week, you know, position need, I'm like, this is why I lambaste the coaches sometimes getting paid, you know, $7 million a year. I'm like, okay, what are you doing that's worth $19,000? That's what you're getting per day.
Sure.
$20,000 a day. What decisions did you make today that's worth $20,000? The decisions they will make tomorrow, that's where that money comes in.
They've already made it, really.
Yeah, well, they're live. Well, when we find out about it tomorrow, we will know that, hey, this is why they get paid.
It all goes back into what you're doing a great job, but I'm projecting this, but you got to factor in that in those two, the grade situation too. And you also say, well, if we can't get this guy, we can actually get a grad transfer and count him forward. So I think we got 3 or 4 grad transfers that could come into scope here based on our needs that people don't know about that we might be looking at. So
and I think
there's no reason for them to tell us everybody they're recruiting. I know all y'all want to have it.
We do want to know, but they don't tell us.
I think in a lot of cases, too, that grad transfer option is a very good one. I think it's like hiring a mercenary. You get a guy in. It's a short-term rental. It works out great for everybody. You got depth. You got the body. If the guy can contribute, great. If not, he's off your books quick.
Look what Cam did for you.
There you go.
Who?
Cam the punter.
Cam
Cam. I thought you were like Cam Newton.
No.
All right, Giovanni.
He just hurt your bank account.
Giovanni Shepard, offensive tackle out at North Forest in Houston, Texas. Not a guy I see Georgia having a real shot with tomorrow. I know that he's mentioned that they'll be part of his decision-making process, but I think he stays in state. I think it's either Texas or Texas A&M. But the fact Georgia got him in, and as we mentioned before, he's gone back and had a chance to talk to those guys. Hey, here's what I saw at Georgia. That's not to be underrated. They sowed some seeds there for sure. So watch. Don't be so worried about him tomorrow. Brett Seether is a guy that I'm going to be watching probably closest of all tomorrow. I think that he is the guy that merits the closest watch because he's down to Alabama and Georgia. Really seems like those are going to be the two options. Decided to cancel his official visit to Penn State this past weekend. So looks like he's pretty clear-cut with his options. He is a position in need. He fills a position in need for Georgia. He's a very good pass catcher. I think that he's going to have to bulk up a little bit in terms of his body to fit with the blocking
Looks a lot
scheme.
like Werner did coming in,
He does. Very similar body type, I think. So Seether is the guy, though, that I'm tentatively penciling in for the class. I think that he's a guy who makes a lot of sense for Georgia in this class.
And here's the case of a guy that I know you two saw him at some kind of camp a long time ago, but back in December, we could do a multiple choice on him, and I don't think anybody would have known who he was around here.
Not at all.
And
no, we had to look him up, even though we'd seen him in person.
But now, losing those two guys, Ford and Nauta, we got to scour the nation. And fortunately, this guy's a late bloomer and didn't have a lot of people after him, and was looking at some smaller schools. But now, if you'd have told that guy all I want for Christmas is an offer for Alabama and from Georgia, you'd just say, hey, I don't believe in Santa Claus.
I'll tell you, I always wonder what it's like for kids like that. And I want to do a story, actually, on this with these kids who, it's kind of middling up and through December, and then that goes off, and now this kid has a month. He's got a month to decide between some of the best options and the best universities and best football programs in the nation. A lot of pressure on these
There's
young
one
guys.
like that
Great
every year.
example, too.
Yep.
Of we were not even in the ball game. Who did Kirby send down there to start? Who's the first rattle out of the box to talk to that guy? Dale McGee.
Yeah.
Well,
if I have to call in a left-handed guy to go in and win, hey, Dell.
Hey, put Dell on him.
I don't know what he does.
A strong chance.
But he's pretty big.
He's genuine, and the players believe in him, and he's just got that. He just makes you feel good talking to him.
Last guy on our list, Jonathan Mingo, put his official visit into Georgia over this past weekend. An Ole Miss commit.
We had the story.
I
about
was glad that you told everybody he was here because I didn't believe him.
We
did this hideout or something.
I'm gonna get in the bushes.
He has been in the bushes many times.
You not only knew that he was here, you knew where he was eating.
I carried the tray of drinks over, so of course I knew.
He has to have two jobs.
But Jonathan Mingo took the official visit this past weekend. I think this is definitely one to watch as well tomorrow. I think that he's a guy who grew up loving Georgia. Look, it's going to be tough, I think, to pull him out of the state of Mississippi. Miss State really likes him. He likes them as well. He's been committed to Ole Miss for a long time. You got to think picking up Plumlee probably played in a little bit there into his decision-making. But I think that there is some serious consideration on his behalf when it comes to Georgia. So not a guy I'm writing off yet. Don't know that I'd write him in, though, either.
Well, if you just put yourself – that was a great chronology of what all was happening. Just put yourself in the case of a coach. Okay, how we stand with Elam? Coach, he's on the fence. I don't know what we're going to do him. Okay, how we stand with Cross? Doesn't look great for him. All right, how's it look with Seether? We can get him. Hey, Seether, we want you to sign with us tomorrow. Then Elam calls back. Hey, I'm coming. Then Cross comes. Hey, I'm coming. Hey, Seether, I don't know if we got a scholarship for you right now. Oh, and then can you just wait a little while? This is just projection. Then Mingo, hey, we really want you, but we just got to find out exactly what's going to happen. You got plenty of time. We'll tell you by a certain time. As compared to knowing you got a bird in the hand, and that's what's happening with every one of these guys. Outside of maybe Elam and Cross, to me, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Pickens, Seether.
Yeah.
And Seether could be in there where you got something no matter what. I don't know. But, I hope the fans understand what they're having to go through for these two positions. And it'd be great if we had three. And that the reason you can take Cage or the guy from from Miami is he can count on the 2020 group. But we can only count 24 on this year's.
Or who's the graduate tight end we saw from Tennessee, Wolf?
Yeah, Ethan Wolf.
That's another guy maybe you take as a grad transfer that counts towards next year. So there's and again, we don't know all the grad transfers out there. And Kirby has been as much as we break a lot of news, he's been fantastic at sneaking in these grad transfers. We had no idea who the hell they were, and all of a sudden, we find out that they've committed or they're coming to Georgia.
Well, Smith, though, we got heard about him because it was such a deal with Alabama.
Yeah.
But if you look at Tyler Catalina, the way he helped us, and of course last year the two Robertson didn't work out, but he's going to help us in the future. And Jay Hayes was a great team player, didn't work out, but those guys had a lot of leadership and help your team, when you need a mature guy, when you got a bunch of younger players. And so I just think we got to get some questions in
All right,
here.
yeah, I'm going to rapid fire some questions
Well,
here.
I want to mention Academia Brew Company real quick. One of our best sponsors. They take good care of us. They have fantastic food,
Probably my
great
favorite.
beer. I know. And we're knocking back this skull. And I'm going to tell you, when the show's over, there'll probably be another couple of these ordered. I mean, it's
We'll
5
get
o'clock,
Roddy.
isn't it?
We're going to get Roddy
It's
an
5
Uber.
o'clock or so, yeah. So I'm just saying, the podcast might be a little bit slower going up today than it is normally. Normally we try to have it up a couple hours after the game. Yeah. It's a signing day.
It'd be like that.
Yeah, it'd be like that. So if you get a chance, swing out by Academia Brewing Company. Great friends of ours. And, of course, I want to give a big shout-out to Your Pie. I've mentioned this every year. If you get a chance on March 14th, 3.14, 3, 4, if you look at the dates, that's Pie Day. You can go out to Your Pie and get any of their pizzas for $3.14. Normally they're $8. $3.14. That's more than half off.
What a genius marketing, too,
It
on their
is,
part.
and I tell you, the place gets packed, so go early. It's one per person. Don't walk in there and try to get like 9 pizzas for $3.14. I actually ate there Friday. Had the Southern Heat. Just went fantastic. Got my boy a sandwich. It was delicious. But again, I'm telling you now, we'll talk more about it as we get closer. But now that it's February, March is just around the corner. Start making your plans.
Well,
March
make plans
14th.
for two things. February 16th, come here to
The
Champions.
4-year anniversary of
And
the
then-
place that's consistently
and then-
voted best fried chicken in Athens.
And then in between, go to Academia and get a few brews. And then on March 14th, that's good.
Your Pie.
All right, let's see
Let's hit
here.
some questions real quick.
Brent Tucker wants to know, are we in the lead for any upcoming transfers? I definitely think so. I think that these grad transfers are going to be a key piece of how they finish out this year. I think that that's going to be.
Yeah, I think in the case of Cager, he played for Coach Coley. He knows him. Maybe he didn't play, but might have been recruited there.
But he played for Todd Hartley.
But he did play down there with Hartley. I think we got a lot of things going for us there, and we have a need for a receiver. Losing, essentially 3 receivers off our team. When you look at Ridley leaving early and Miko leaving, and then graduating Godwin.
Ab Harding, speaking of wide receivers, says, how good is Jonathan Mingo? Number 150 player in the nation. I mentioned on the board earlier today, I think the best thing about Jonathan Mingo is excellent hands. That kid has stick-em on the gloves, man. He pulls everything in. A guy who maybe not the biggest dude on earth, but can definitely get out there and catch it.
The thing about the game the other night's a great indicator. Speed is relative, but quickness is the name of the game. Being able to elude people off the line, get open. As people play these exotic coverages, they can stop just a one-way deep guy that just goes deep. But, if you got quickness and speed, that really helps you to go with your speed.
What was up with the midnight visit Nick Cross took? Would he take such a randomly timed visit if Georgia wasn't a real threat? I definitely understand the point there that's being made. Why would he take the time out of his schedule to come on his own dime and show up in Athens? I think that he was checking boxes, though.
Right.
I'm not saying that Georgia's totally out of this thing for tomorrow. I don't like their chances, but I think that he wanted to make sure, the attention they showed him. He's visited Athens before. I think that he wanted to do a flyback by and review all his
Here's
options.
the deal for the fans. That you have 5 official visits. Most kids don't take all 5. Some of them take 3, some of them take 2. But he had 5, and he had the last one was to Penn State. We were in there early with him. Tucker left. We lost a little ground. Then we got back in there landing, and those guys went up there over the Bowles situation. And then we got a new defensive backfield coach. He went up there, and we talked to him, and look, at least come down here. Let us show you who we have on our team. Go over our squad list. You know, it's not going to hurt you to come down for a day and a half. And that's what he did.
All right, last one here. Well, in terms of recruiting, none of the recruits on UGA's board tomorrow are from Georgia. What happened to the fence that was being built around the state? Look, you're done in state. I mean, at this point, you're recruiting nationally. I mean, they got a lot of the guys that they wanted from the state of Georgia. If I'm pointing to a couple of guys that maybe they missed on in this class from the state, Andrew Booth definitely comes to mind. I think that he would certainly qualify in that. Jaden Hazelwood, obviously, as well.
Hinton,
yep.
Hinton.
But
here's the thing about that. I mean, we're talking about the last two here.
Yeah.
And there's not. I mean, how many guys in Georgia are still up for grabs?
Not many.
A lot of them that Tech are signing, right?
Yeah.
Is there a top wide receiver in state available?
There is not.
Is there a top tight end available in state?
There definitely
is. There
not.
a top offensive lineman still available?
No.
There's your
Or is there a
answer.
top DB left?
Not really.
Okay, so and that wasn't any slam against Tech. They started late, but I mean, I think we do have a good wall in the state right now. I mean, look at who we've gotten. I mean.
All right, I want to wrap things up on this question because I think it's an interesting question. Luke Kicklighter says, any reason Kirby hasn't named Dan Lanning the DC yet? I'm interested in that too. What's the holdup here? What's the wait? Now maybe there's some strategy here. Maybe if they don't know who the defensive coordinator is going into the season, that'll throw other teams off. But I'm having a hard time kind of gathering the reasoning behind.
Do we have any water here?
Yeah.
Take some water and pour it through my hands and see how long it takes for it to hit there. It doesn't take very long, does it? That's about how long Kirby cares about what you think about it.
Damn.
I mean, that's nothing against Dan's question here, but he knows what he's doing.
Sorry,
Dan knows what he's doing. Schumann knows what he's doing. He had to hire a defensive backfield coach. He hired one, and, you know.
Yeah, but he could take 2 seconds to put out a press release. Hey, I've announced Dan Lanning whoever.
He's going to have a press conference in March sometime. He's not,
Exactly.
He's not going to have one tomorrow. I don't blame him because the first thing they'd do after he said, tell us about those 2 recruits, everybody be, hey, who's the defensive coordinator?
Yeah, heaven forbid the
he wants to have
head
some
coach
time.
at a public university answers questions.
I hope he goes on a slight vacation with everybody else around here. But, hey, I know you keep saying public there. He's pretty – I mean, he does a pretty good job of meeting the press and all. I know he's not quite as open as you would be. But
no, I will give Kirby Smart credit for this. When we get him, there are no questions that are off limits. We can ask him anything. We usually get an answer. Occasionally he says, I'm not going to answer that. And usually, to be fair, it's because we asked him something stupid like, what's your game plan for this team? You know, right. He's like, well, why the hell would I tell you? You know, or sometimes, you know, are you going to use this kid more in this type function? He's like, well, why would I telegraph that ahead of time? You know, so yeah. I give him credit for that. And we've been able to ask him. There were times when we would interview Mark Richt, and you would hate that, and this is not a shot against red and black, but they'd offer up some question, some kind of softball, and he would just go on a 45-minute monologue.
And then be like, I'm done.
We're done. Exactly. Kirby's quick to the point. He doesn't take the easy way out by just going on these monologues. He answers pretty tough questions, so I give him credit for that. My issue is we don't get him enough, and if he doesn't want to do it as much, let us talk to somebody else. You know,
that's not
fans, I know it's not going to happen,
right.
but it hadn't happened in 3 years.
All right. We'll let you two bicker about this off air.
I'm just going to say
Signing
this.
day.
Here's what's going to happen is there's going to be a combo deal. Schumann's going to have some kind of title. He's going to have some kind of title. Kirby's going to be involved with it. And it's no reason to go overboard on it. It's pretty obvious if you read the paper. Did Dan Lanning, was he offered the defensive coordinator job at Colorado? Duh, yeah. Did he take it? No, duh. Did he come back to Georgia? Duh, yeah. Why did he come back if he couldn't be the coordinator here? Duh.
Pretty much what we said from day one. But it would be nice.
And everybody called me a smartass for that, but that's the reality of it.
If Kirby wants me to write the press release, I'll write it. He can just sign it, and we'll be done.
But it's
anyway,
going to be somebody.
Hey,
Glenn Schumann's going to be in the ball game on this, too. He should be.
Shout
He's
out
a
to
good
Luke.
coach.
Luke is one of our. He's been a subscriber at UGA Sports back when it was dial-up internet. He's been a great friend of ours, a good friend of
Is
the
that
show.
the
and
question? I wasn't making fun of Luke.
No.
either.
I'm just saying I appreciate Luke, and he doesn't ask questions to get me
But
riled
that's
up.
a good question there, Luke. I'm just saying, it's we could put
No, that's
this.
the answer. Kirby doesn't give a
It's
damn.
the rhetorical question of the year, in my mind. When you already have 10 coaches, unless somebody's getting ready to get their exit paper tomorrow, some combination of people on that staff or one person is going to be the defensive coordinator, or you might have a play caller like Coach Belichick had. Flores wasn't a coordinator, but he called the play. So, hey, that might be something he's thinking about. We're going to have you the designated play caller.
But
Now he's a coach at the Miami Dolphins.
it'll never work
We've
out.
gone on forever. We have pushed this one so far.
Yeah, we went a little long. folks.
We will definitely make sure you get over to UGAsports.com for all your signing day coverage tomorrow.
I can't wait for your predictions.
We'll have everything up. Yeah, be looking for those predictions tonight.
You going to have blood type in there?
Yeah, we're going to be we'll be on that as well, and we'll definitely have people at all the big announcements as well around the nation. So,
Is anybody going out on the road tomorrow to cover anything?
We've got some guys, some stringers working for us tomorrow who are going to be a little closer. That way,
First stringer, second stringer. Yeah. I mean, really, we do.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's a great part to be at a network. You know, when we need to have someone cover Kyer Elam, our Florida site, which is much closer to him, they'll go down and cover it because he's picking between Georgia and Florida.
Is that the same guy that told us that Warren wasn't interested in us?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Good projection by him.
Brutal.
yeah. Sorry, Corey.
All right.
Especially after I asked you to check on that.
Yeah,
And you did.
I did. And Corey told me. Corey
But I
tweeted
will
out
say
that-
this. I will say this. You've had a lot of picks on the personnel.
Yeah, we've nailed most of them, but we missed Charles Warden because our Florida guy told us he wasn't coming. To be fair, Corey, maybe at the time it was not an option. So at the time
He
when we
just
asked
needs to
Corey,
read Football Scoop is on there on Saturday. Not our site.
yeah, I know. All right,
That was a joke.
I got it. Yeah, it was there weeks after it had been reported. Anyway, big shout out to Athens Ford, Aaron Over at Doors, Europe High, 365 Game Day, Academia Brewing Company, Champions for letting us come in here, and thanks Champions for feeding us. They do a great job of that. And, of course, 11 Alive and Cable East. We will talk to you folks next week where we will be able to review everything that transpires on signing day. And, of course, we will always answer your UGA football questions. Talk to you next week.
That's it for this episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast. Tune in next week for more Georgia Bulldogs news and notes from Athens.